the head over the Levites was the king.
Yeah.
That's why one of the first acts that Solomon did was judge between them two women with their babies, man. It was a judgment thing. Now you sit. How you gonna sit in judgment and be a goddamn faggot? And then you were responsible for getting scholars together to translate the Bible into the common English.
Boom.
Well, what kind of bullshit? And if that was King James, would he take out the part about the homosexuality?
Absolutely.
That shows you, hey brother, ain't nothing deep about you, Shaka man.
That's right.
Okay, you read one bit of information, you run with that shit, man.
That's right.
And then all those books that you read, and then you use the term. What did you use? What did the term you use about these scholars? You use a term. I forget what the term was. It escapes me right now. But basically, you should have said the white man. You called them scholars. They all got together and agreed on one thing. But then they debate on the dates. One guy could say 1 year. The next scholar or the next archaeologist could say, no, you're 100 years off. All right? And then you had to say that's why it's called circa. And you explain, we know what circa means. It means doing that around that, circulating around that time period. If it's a circa 1620, it could have been 1610, 1590, 1620, 1630. All right? Right. It's approximate. All right? And all those books that you read, you got it one way or another from the white man. Remember, Cheikh Anta Diop married a white woman. He went to France. He studied in the university. I forget the exact name of the university in France. And he was a mathematician. Then all of a sudden he became this deep scholar of the Egyptian history. But where did he learn it from? He didn't learn it in Senegal. He learned it in France under the white man, under the white man's authority.
That's right.
You had something, Paul? No. Yeah, I wanted to make this point on this circumcision. This brother gonna bring out a scripture, then I got another one. But for you brothers, just to edify you on something, circumcision, like Apostle Kabar said, there were times where it was done later. You're supposed to get it done at birth, man. Okay.
It was done. Yeah. It was done during the time of the so-called New Testament.
That's right.
Because you had Israelites that were raised up to be Gentiles, following the cultures of the other nations. And what happened was when they came, they woke up to the fact that they were Israelites and they were not Gentiles. You had a big uproar with certain scribes and Pharisees who believed in the Messiah, who said, look, this guy's got to be circumcised. And there was a situation where Paul had to, it was a couple of situations where they had to summon, Peter, the head apostles, and they had to lay down, the law, but they did say, well, you don't have to necessarily circumcise yourself at this time. I mean, technically you were supposed to. Yeah. Technically you were supposed to.
Yeah, one of the first acts that Paul did after that whole situation, after that the apostles gave that order, one of the very first things he did was he circumcised Timothy. And the very next chapter after that whole ordeal went down, the very first thing he did was he took Timothy, and who was converted, he circumcised him, and then he was circumcised.
Exactly. And can I say something? You should want. Let me tell you what, man. If you wake up to the fact that you were Israelite and you learning these scriptures and you learning the history of who you are and you read about Yahweh, you should want to be circumcised, man. First of all, being uncircumcised is unclean and it's heathenistic, man.
But wait a minute, hold on. He's talking this crap about we learned circumcision from them Africans. First of all, the Philistines came out of the line of they go back to the ancient Egyptians. They're Kemetic. the Philistines, man. And the Israelites used to refer to them as uncircumcised dogs.
That's right, they weren't
So what in the
circumcised.
hell are you talking about, man?
That's right. We were always fighting against the Philistines. During the time of King David, well, Saul, when King Saul was going to be put to death, the final moments of his life, he fell upon his own sword because he said he didn't want to be put to death by these uncircumcised heathens. Dogs, man. So the Philistines were uncircumcised. Which
the Philistines, the real Egyptians, the real Egyptians are the Philistines. All right, the real Egyptians are the Philistines, which later down the line, you know, you had the Watusi and those different tribes. Yeah, those different tribes that migrated down to South Africa. They're the original Egyptians, which you guys didn't even know that. When a question was asked to you, who are the real Egyptians today, you couldn't even answer it. That's who the real Egyptians are today, the so-called Watusi and the different, the Bantu? I'm not sure if it's, not the Bantus, the Watusi.
Well, he's saying the Bantus are supposed to be...
the Zulus, that's it.
The
Zulus.
Bantus are supposed to be Egyptians, but the Bantus, well, we're going to do more research on that.
Right.
Would most likely be Israelites before the Egyptians.
Right. The Zulus, that's the word I wanted to get out. The Zulus, the Watusis, they were known for their height, their stature. Okay? Those are the real Egyptians today. All right? They're going to those names. And that brings us back to the scripture, the covering cast over all peoples. That's the prophecy, because when the so-called white man took over, he put different labels in all different peoples. Like the so-called Chinese. What's that?
Beginning with the Greeks.
Beginning with the Greeks. The so-called Chinese, which are really Moabites, according to the scriptures, they now go under the name Chinese. The so-called Japanese, Ammonites, all right? Israelites, the so-called Negroes, they're called Negroes now, but they're really Israelites. So that's the point. All right?
Certain point, because and basically in the camp in Washington D.C., there's a brother that identifies himself as being a Bantu, you know, from Cameroon. So and he's a clear as day Israelite, you know.
Yeah, Chris Tucker, he's from Cameroon.
Yes, he is. And anybody had that thing with them jigs? With that, you know, that doctor nigga, that
Dr. Henry Gates.
yeah, the nigga with the glasses,
I
light
had another one.
skin.
Now, you know what I found out? What's this chick that she played in the Fantastic Four? Alba.
Jessica Alba.
She thought she was Issacharite, but her father's line go back to Gad.
Yeah, she's a Gadite.
Because there was certain Gadites that went among Issachar
The
and then
Apaches.
took on the Issacharite thing.
Yeah.
Hey, but her line goes straight back to Gad, man.
Yeah, that makes sense.
On the father's side, man.
That makes sense. She's a
You know,
Gadite.
because he did a thing the other day. You know,
Yeah, because you had the Apaches and the Navajos. They lived. Geronimo, when they was chasing Geronimo, before they caught Geronimo, he only had 30 warriors and then a certain amount of women and children. He was raiding he was in Mexico. Matter of fact, when they caught up to him, it was in Mexico. And you got the what's this other tribe, man? The Yaquis. Okay, the Yaquis. Those are Gadites. They're not Issachar, but they live in Mexico, man. Okay, so you had a lot of Gadites that was fleeing from the United States government when they was imposing the reservation system. So a lot of the tribes, primarily the southwestern tribes, like the Yaquis, like the Apaches, the different bands of Apache, they just fled deeper into Mexico, man, and intermingled with Issachar. And then you had a lot of Seminoles, man, amongst my tribe that fled into Mexico, man, that went into Mexico, okay, and stayed down there. So you got Reuben and Gad all down amongst Issachar, man. So the tribes were mingled in amongst each other, man. And in some cases, we mingled in amongst the Esau and the other nations, man. You got a lot of people that look like crackers that are Gadites, man, that they thought they were white, because what happened was during the 1800s when the white man was killing Gad and hunting down Gad, a lot of Gadites went and they got with Edomites to try to blend in blend in, or they got with Judah, and their kids came out after a while looking so they would be free from harm, man. So it was the same thing down there in Africa, Israel, when 70 A.D. when Jerusalem was destroyed, and the Israelites that was left in Jerusalem fled down into Africa, the interiors of Africa. A lot of the Israelites, they was down there living amongst them Africans. Now, we had mentioned the Zulus. They had that movie that came out back in the 80s, man, when I was a kid. It was Shaka Zulu. And everybody was watching that. There was a scene. I got to watch the movie again. But brothers back in One West used to always bring that out, man. There was a scene where he actually made mention to the Jews, of that, the wandering Jews. And he had them in captivity, Shaka Zulu. He said, yes, he said, we're taking them to be sold, the wandering Jews of Africa. So they put the shit right in your face, man. And it was so-called black people. There wasn't no crackers down there. So Shaka, man, you should watch that movie, Shaka.